Of a Linear Circle, Part 1, Chapter 3, The Underground. Albus hires Remus Lupin as their next attempt at acquiring a defense against the dark arts teacher. Severus remains terrified of werewolves, but now he can brew wolfsbane and feel like he doesn't need to barricade his door with furniture every night. Lupin is still at least tolerable, and from the looks of his wardrobe, bordering on destitute. Severus would be fine with Lupin's employment if Sirius Black didn't choose the same school term to break out of Azkaban. Albus calls for an emergency staff meeting, which takes place after curfew following the start of term feast. 12 years, and then he decides it's time to somehow escape the unescapable. Severus growls under his breath. I'm not exactly pleased with his timing either, Lupin says. I'm also not pleased with the Dementors lurking about, especially the one who invaded a train car and tried to attack Harry. Severus feels a muscle under his eye twitch. God take it. The brat wasn't even doing anything for once. You've had no communication with Sirius this year, Remus. Nothing at all, Albus asks. Lupin shakes his head. I haven't spoken to Sirius since before Halloween in 1981, Albus. I certainly had nothing to say to him afterwards. Can we not get rid of the blasted Dementors, Albus? Minerva asks. She spent the entire evening scowling. Her house is probably more terrified of her at the moment than of the Dementors or Black. It's a ministry decree for the safety of our students, Albus reminds them. It is unfortunately not my decision to make. I can order that they remain away from the school grounds, but I cannot send them back to Azkaban. This school term might prove to be worse than the previous one, but at least Severus has the comfort of knowing that Potter is not going to Hogsmeade. He still doesn't put it past the boy to try, given his father's history. He already has to begin his weekend earlier than preferable to brew wolfsbane, so he will have time to make certain Potter is still in the Bloody Castle. Instead of a missing child, he notices Potter sitting on the short riser that leads back down into the entrance hall, with its view of the Great Hall and the Grand Stair. Potter has company. A Gryffindor first-year Muggle-born named Edward Black is sitting on the opposite edge of the riser. Given what Severus has heard, the child is probably sick to death of telling people his origins, and that he is not related to those Blacks or that particular Black the Dementors are searching for. Severus casts a disillusionment charm and moves closer. If Potter decides to adopt a Muggle-born Black, he direly wants advance notice. You're not going to Hogsmeade? Black is asking Potter. Potter shrugs. Didn't get my permission slip signed. How come? My relatives don't like me very much. Potter glances at Black. Is this nosiness or curiosity? Black shifts in place. It can't be both. You're Ed, right? Edward. Black looks appalled. My name is Edward. My mom can call me Ed, but no one else can. I don't even let my dad do that. Potter smiles. Fine. Edward. Sorry. It seems like everyone wants to shorten their name. Not me. Not you, either. The only thing shorter than Harry is hair, Potter says dryly. Well, Black gives Potter another shy look. It'd be sort of accurate, right? Potter puts one hand into the black mess he calls his hair and tugs. Yeah, but I probably have enough horrible nicknames based on last year's stupidity. I don't think I need another one, whether it's accurate or not. Why? What happened last year? Black asks. I'm surprised you haven't been told about it by everyone in Gryffindor. Black hunches his shoulders and lowers his head. I don't, uh, I don't really have friends in Gryffindor yet. Well, I think Ginny Weasley might like me. Oh God, not like me, friendship like me. Potter seems to be making a go of not smiling in the face of Black's high-pitched concern. It's fine. I don't really have a lot of friends either. No way, Black says at once. You totally have a lot of friends. Why would I? Potter asks in confusion. Because you're you. Just because I'm muggle-born doesn't mean I can't read the Prophet when someone's done with their copy, Black says. Potter raises his one hand and ticks off his fingers. Hermione, Ron, Ginny, Fred, George. That's it, Edward. But that can't be right, Black is frowning. I've seen loads of people talk to you. This time Potter does smile. Edward, there's a huge difference between someone being polite and someone being your friend. Almost everyone in this school spent most of last year terrified of me. Black frowns. Uh, why? Potter then gives the first year a brief summary of last term's events, including the fight with the basilisk, as if Severus wanted to be reminded of that again so soon. He does note that Potter is careful to omit Ginny's name, and only says it was a student in trouble. Wait, hold on. Let me. Black's expression scrunches up. So you can talk to snakes, but you didn't know you could talk to snakes. Yeah, and no one believed that you didn't know? Black says. Yep. And that you would open a chamber with a mad basilisk in it and only petrify random people with it instead of people that you didn't like? Black asks in disbelief. Potter bursts out laughing. Are you sure you were sorted into the right house? I mean, you're right, but Black ducks his head again. I'm sure. The hat said Gryffindor right away, so that means it's correct, doesn't it? Maybe. Potter looks at Black. Don't tell anyone? Black shakes his head at once, sensing the passing of a secret. Not ever, I promise. I argued with the hat. I didn't know you weren't supposed to, but it started talking, so I talked back. That's polite, right? Potter asks Black. Sure, Black replies. Mum's all over me about good manners. The hat didn't speak to me, though. What did it say? It was debating over Slytherin or Gryffindor. I told it Gryffindor. I was prepared to sit on that stool all night to convince it too, Potter says. Severus grinds his teeth. It's nice to know that he was correct, but he's still angry that the hat didn't suggest anything else. Why? Black is staring at Potter wide-eyed. I met Malfoy before I met the hat. Otherwise, I might not have worried about it. Have you met Draco Malfoy, Edward? Oh, him. Yeah. Black drops his gaze back down to the floor. Potter gives him a sharp look. Has Malfoy hurt you? One would think you actually cared, Severus muses, but it's a lie he has to keep telling himself. Children who don't care do not fight ghosts and basilisks to keep another child from dying. Black shakes his head. No, he's just shoved me down a few times and laughed about it. Said if I was a real Black, I wouldn't be so helpless. Potter frowns. Edward, being shoved around means that you're being hurt. Black shrugs in response. I wasn't bleeding or nothing. So you have to be bleeding, bones broken, or otherwise dying for it to matter? That's rubbish, Potter says. Black gives him a confused look from beneath the reddish-brown curls of his hair. Why do you care? I live with free bullies. I don't care much for that sort, whether they're magical or not, Potter replies. Whatever the two might say next is interrupted, infuriatingly, by Ginevra Weasley. Edward, come on. I've been looking everywhere for you. Black blushes and tries to hide beneath his hair again. Uh, we can't play a decent game of Snap without another player. Oh, hi, Harry. You can come too. Ginevra invites Potter when she notices who's sitting with Black. Potter smiles. No, it's okay. I'd rather just roam around for a bit. Black looks at Potter as if he's the worst sort of traitor. No, come with me, he whispers in dismay. Potter just grins. Have fun, guys. Miss Weasley retreats with her captured Gryffindor. Potter waits until they're out of sight up the grand stair before he rises and heads for the stairs too, but he's no longer smiling. Sirius Black gets into the castle at some point that afternoon, shredding the portrait that blocks the entrance to the Gryffindor common room. Severus swears viciously over the idea that he has to be grateful to Remus Lupin, who had Potter with him in his office. If Potter had been hall roaming, as he'd said, Severus has no idea what might have happened. Severus tells Nazar about his day that evening, when it finally bloody well ends. He was in no mood to search the castle for Sirius Black either, but the delightful thoughts of what he'd do to the bastard if Severus found the man provided pleasant distraction. I honestly cannot decide if I want to thank Draco for ensuring Potter did not end up in Slytherin, or if I want to wring his neck for being the worst sort of example of a Slytherin before those children could even arrive in Hogwarts. Nazar shakes his head. You're the one who thinks it would have been a terrible idea. But if you thank Draco for anything without context, He's going to make assumptions and then strut around like a peacock. He does quite enough of that already, Severus says. I'm still displeased with the revelation that Draco is imitating Sirius Black instead of his own father. Nazar grimaces. Lucius was a twit. At least prefer that the child be acting more like his mother. Severus nods. That is a valid point, and would definitely be preferable. I'd also prefer you not let any of this drive you into alcoholism, Nazar says. Severus glances down at his half-empty glass, which reflects the gentle glow from the dying fire. Just the one. I also have many reasons not to let that become true. Nazar falls silent for a moment. I've said something wrong, haven't I? No. Severus decides he's had enough to drink for the night. My father was an alcoholic. I have no wish to follow in his footsteps. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You never talked about your father before, Nazar says quietly. Severus kicks an ember back into the fireplace when it's spat out by the heat. Beyond his being an alcoholic, there really is not much to tell. Given the sheer amount of murder burning in your eyes right now, I know you're lying, but I won't pry. Murder? Severus repeats, amused. It's rather obvious, Nazar says. If that's the expression you walk into a classroom with, it's a wonder they don't all soil themselves. Severus inclines his head. That would explain why certain children from the other three houses cannot stop stuttering in my presence. And what about your favorite child? I mean, Det. Nazar corrects himself, but he's smirking when Severus glances up. Is he one of your stutterers? No. Severus lets out a humorless laugh. If he responds to his relatives the same way he responds to my classroom persona, it's a wonder they didn't murder Potter. He knows better, though. Severus doesn't have a say in when or if Potter receives a meal. That sort of power hanging over a young one's head changes quite a bit. It probably would be more accurate to say that it's a miracle the Dursleys didn't kill Potter just to be rid of him. Severus still cannot go rid the world of Petunia Dursley, even if he grows ever more certain she may well have earned the pleasure. This school term progresses with no one managing to capture Black, even though the fucking Dementors once again try to kill Potter. Severus still can't blame the child, who is doing nothing yet again, unless Dementors are somehow infuriated by Quidditch. Black keeps getting into the castle somehow, and even gains access to the Gryffindor dormitories. Why he then went after Weasley instead of Potter is beyond Severus's comprehension. Azkaban must have driven Black insane. Severus isn't wrong about Black being insane, but it's galling to discover that the man is innocent. Peter Pettigrew is alive. Pettigrew was the secret keeper for the Fidelius charm. He is going to strangle that rat to death with his bare damned hands. Then the full moon rises. Severus has no time to panic about a werewolf. He has to keep a bunch of other idiots from dying. He almost loses Potter to the blasted Dementors, but the child is saved by the intervention of his stag Patronus that charges across the lake to clear their path. He doesn't know who or how, and he doesn't have the time to care. He still has to play a role, this time as the smug bastard who caught Sirius Black. He hopes Albus has a plan for this, because Severus's thoughts are racing in 16 different directions at once while trying to keep up with it all. The plan that is cobbled together while he has to deal with the blasted fudge makes Severus want to strangle his employer, but even he has to admit that it worked. Severus would just like the man to stop using underage children as his bloody minions. Black isn't dead to his regret, but if Black dies, it should be at least for something he did do. Lupin will be leaving the defense post at the end of the year. Potter is unharmed. No one died. He should be relieved. Instead, Severus is sitting in front of the common room fireplace, breathing his way through what he suspects is a borderline blackout panic attack. Severus, listen to me. This place is safe. It has always been safe. Damn it, please listen to me. I can't actually get out of this stupid portrait, you know. I know, Severus rasps, bent over with his eyes focused on the hearthstones. Oh, good, you're talking. I was worried it would be one of the bad ones. Not this time, Severus swallows and keeps breathing. It helped that it was not a bloody tunnel. I imagine it would, Nazar says. What happened to the damned wolfsbane? Someone got too excited by the opportunity to kill another, and for once, it wasn't me, Severus says dryly. Lupin was gone from his office when I brought him the stupid potion. The school term for September 1994 through June 1995 is a complete disaster. That's all that Severus can think to call it. Someone casts a powerful Confundus charm on the stupid goblet so that it adds Potter's name to the tournament. The first task is literally a draconic nightmare. The second task sees someone stealing him clean of gillyweed, and to his surprise, it isn't Potter. Other potions ingredients are vanishing from his stores, all of them for Polyjuice, but Miss Granger is otherwise occupied. The absolute worst moment occurs when Potter brings himself back from Little Hangleton, bleeding and screaming over a Hufflepuff corpse. Then Barty Crouch Jr. outs himself as not dead and completely out of his damned mind, swiftly followed by Cornelius Fudge outing himself as a complete, blithering idiot. The end of that term is the only time Severus argues against Albus's ruling to send the boy back to Surrey. Voldemort is alive. Potter witnessed his resurrection. Potter has already had his first blasted duel with the Dark Lord. Surrey is not safe. Petunia has never been safe. Albus insists that the blood magic from Lily's sacrifice will protect Potter from Voldemort. Severus chooses not to say several dozen foul words and instead points out that the magic might only apply to Voldemort. What if someone else dares to cross that protective magic? It cannot happen, Albus says, calm and unconcerned. No one who intends to harm Harry Potter will be able to enter that home. Severus glares at him. Then why has that house not ejected the Dursley family onto the street, he asks, and leaves when he doesn't hear a satisfactory or useful answer. Neglect, starvation, and potential physical abuse. If that blood protection is true, then the Dursleys would no longer be able to live there. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. Severus has no say over Potter's life, and indeed, he can't afford to have it. Dumbledore wants you to teach that boy occlumency? Mind magic? Nazar stares at him. While you also need to make it clear that you consider Harry Potter an enemy? Severus nods. Yes, he says flatly. Mind magic requires trust in the teacher, Nazar shouts incensed. Has he lost his damned mind? I am well aware of what is required, Nazar. Severus leans back on the sofa, feeling too wrung out by the conclusion of the damned tournament to be angry. He is enraged, but he can put it aside, a feeling he can utilize later to fuel harsh and terrible magic. I suppose I'll need to push the boy to the point where he refuses to come back. At least Albus can then take up those lessons where I will disastrously leave off. Then why is he not teaching Potter in the first place? Nazar is furious, the angriest Severus has ever seen him. I don't know. Perhaps Albus is planning for things to proceed in exactly that fashion. Nazar swears in one unbroken streak of mingled English and Spanish. Severus, without trust, you won't just be frustrating both yourself and that child. You'll be torturing him. Severus flinches. Is that why you're angry? Yes, but not at you. Nazar slams his fist into the stone wall of his own sitting room. Ow! That was foolish, Severus observes. I'm a portrait. I can't actually break myself. Nazar sits down and scowls. None of this is a good idea. I am aware of that too. Severus is awoken after midnight on the 31st of July by a panicked Hogwarts house elf. Severus rubs his face and tells the elf to go inform Albus Dumbledore that he'll be along in a moment. He needs to choke down a pepper-up potion to do it, but he's in the man's office in less than 5 minutes. He hasn't slept well since the Dark Lord's return, for varying reasons. Well, did Potter escape onto the night bus and go into London on his own again? Severus asks caustically. Albus is staring at one of the delicate instruments on his desk. No, he says in a hushed, shocked voice. Harry Potter has vanished. Severus draws up short. Not in time for sarcasm of any sort, then. He's what? Vanished, Albus repeats, a rare look of complete bewilderment on his face. He did not die. He did not physically depart from number 4 Privet Drive. Before midnight, he was there. 15 minutes after midnight, he was not. Then someone apparated into the house and kidnapped your wizarding savior. Severus is grinding his teeth against the urge to scream in thwarted rage. He predicted this very possibility and was ignored. He doesn't know how he is going to rescue the brat while maintaining his role as a spy. He might have to sacrifice that position. And without the Dark Lord's defeat a looming certainty, it's far too soon. There is also the fact that Voldemort would use the Dark Mark to kill him the moment he realized Severus had betrayed him. But Severus isn't going to worry about that potential until they find Potter. This was not an apparition, though I am double-checking. Albus touches his wand to the device, which takes on a violet glow that Severus has never seen before. He was magically removed from the house. Yes, you are correct on that front, Severus. But he is nowhere else in this world. That's impossible, Severus says flatly. Even if someone stuffed Potter into a faulty vanishing cabinet, a living wizard still exists somewhere. Albus's expression remains grave. Something is indeed amiss. I'm sending members of the Order to the house to explore. I will be accompanying them. Please keep an eye on the school. If Voldemort calls on your presence, awaken Minerva. Make certain she knows of the situation, and then attend to him. If he has somehow acquired Harry, I will do what is needed, Severus reminds them, irritated by the unnecessary delay. You know this. Albus nods once. I do, he says, and departs. The investigation reveals only that a wizard of indeterminate origins has been inside Potter's bedroom after midnight. Some sort of spell was performed, one which no one among those investigators can identify. Albus is certain Potter was not killed, but they do not know where Potter has gone or if he will be returned. Voldemort does not have Potter. He is enraged that his prize has been so well hidden. He mentions some sort of connection which chills Severus's blood, but the Dark Lord also mentions that the mysterious connection is not working. Severus can't decide if that's reassuring or not. They know only this with certainty. Potter is missing, as is his wand, that damnable cloak, and his owl. A willing removal, then? Severus asks. Minerva is dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief, as if Potter is dead already. Was it Sirius Black losing his patience with the situation and claiming his legal position as Potter's guardian? Sirius was not involved. He is exceptionally distraught. I know that you detest him, but Sirius once again feels as if he failed in his duty. Severus, even though it was I who kept him from performing it. Albus has an uncharacteristic moment of hesitation. I quite honestly do not know what to tell anyone. The truth. Potter is missing, Severus says, trying not to roll his eyes at the need to point out the obvious. You don't know if he's dead. Missing saviors inspire hope. Dead saviors do not encourage it at all. Minerva sniffs again and glances at Severus, her expression firming into hard resolve. Quite right. Harry could turn up tomorrow, Albus. Despite the faint stir of optimism Severus feels at her words, Potter does not turn up in the morning, or the next day, or the next week. Severus waits until the end of August before he returns to the Slytherin common room for the first time since mid-July, a glass of fire whiskey in his hand. He sits down on the sofa before the fire, staring at the flames until Nazar finally coughs to gain his attention. Why so morose? I mean, you've certainly mastered the expression in the past 2 years, but this seems worse than usual. I failed, Severus whispers. I broke my promise. Failed? Nazar comes closer until he's all but leaning out of the portrait frame to stare down at him. What's wrong? Potter vanished on the 31st in a manner that not even Albus can discern. There has been no trace of him since. The Dark Lord does not have him. He's too angry, and he would not have been able to resist the opportunity to brag besides. Instead, he believes Albus has hidden Potter from him, which keeps the Voldemort from completing his dearest wish, finishing what he began in 1981. Vanished is not dead, said Nazar. I have no idea what kind of magic could be doing as you've said, though. Weren't you supposed to be a well-educated teacher of Hogwarts? Severus asks, bitterly amused. Yes, my portrait was painted in 1017. I'm 978 years old. I don't remember things the way I should, Severus. I think I've forgotten most of the 1700s. Nazar considers that for a moment. I don't think I really missed much, to be honest. I just. Severus finishes the drink, wishing for another and glad he didn't bring the bottle. He needs to be able to think, not be in the middle of committing atrocities against his liver. I have no idea what to do. Your job, Nazar suggests. Severus glances up at the portrait with his familiar Spanish complexion, odd hazel eyes, and messy brown hair. That's all? Unless you can pull miracles out of your own ass? Yes, Nazar says, and Severus forces back a smile. That aside, Severus, why rely on one magician's talents? You do not have access to whatever form of detection the headmaster is using, but you do have your own skills. You might find something he could never see, either because it's too subtle or too bloody obvious. It's something he's considered doing, but it seemed wiser to let others take the lead. And if Voldemort discovers I'm doing so, doesn't Voldemort want this child found? Nazar asks. The smile on his face isn't friendly at all. You're merely doing what any Death Eater should be doing on behalf of the Lord Voldemort, are you not? Severus gives in and smiles. Nazar, sometimes you are vaguely terrifying. Nazar shrugs. I am a Slytherin. It's a familial trait, Severus. Is it really? There was no vaguely about how terrifying our sister was. Estefania was a politician. I'm convinced, Severus says. Magic just seems to make politicians that much more dangerous. Nazar grins at him. Estefania wasn't magical. Besides, he continues, leaning back so perspective shifts, revealing a man bent over to scoop a tiny basilisk off a chair's seat. You don't need magic to be cunning. Severus lifts an eyebrow. You know, you're right. Better, Nazar announces, smiling down at Kanza. Much better than moping, Severus. Fuck you, Severus retorts in annoyance, but Nazar only laughs. Severus does indeed have his own talents, and not all of them were honed by magic. He explores Muggle areas of Greater London, Surrey, Kent, Hertford, Reading, and Essex. With the term begun, it means the only time he can spare is on certain late evenings and weekend nights. But he doesn't sleep easily, regardless. The burning of breaking the bird of breaking his oath to protect Lily's child bites at Severus, chases him into sleep, wakes him in the middle of the night, and befouls his temper even more during the day. No matter if he remained in Hogwarts or not, Severus would be roaming. He doesn't need magic to listen and observe. The benefit to growing up in a pit like Cokeworth is that he can talk to otherwise suspicious men and women in judged lower class neighborhoods and easily prove that he belongs. Though it takes a charm on his clothes that causes the viewer to forget what he was wearing. Perhaps it's a bit of a cheat, but he feels no need to resume wearing childhood dinge. He has a result of a sort by mid-October. Whether or not it's useful for finding Potter, he has no idea. But he has concrete rumor of an underground that isn't one populated by trains and commuters. But what is it for? Severus has all but digging his heels in to hang on to the Cokeworth dredges of an accent to finish the conversation. This particular dock worker is due to return to their shift. Don't rightly know, the man says, throwing a lit cigarette into the Thames where it meets the ocean. And Muggles still wonder why the river is so polluted. Rubbish has been going into European waters since ancient people decided that splashing sounds were enticing. Do know it's supposed to be damned quiet. Only reason I heard tell of it because it was a cousin of mine. He went and helped one of them out one night a few years back. Poor fellow was hurt fierce, but couldn't go to a hospital. My cousin asked him if he was one of them Guy Fawkes things. The bloke says nah, Fawkes, at least. Just wanted to stick with Parliament. Sort of anti-Fawkes folk, he says. Anti-Fawkes, Severus repeats. That feels like a deliberate choice. Like a joke. Thanks. No problem, mate. Remember it's hush, the man says, and jumps down from the docks to land on the decking of the barge tied below. Right. Severus apparates back to London when he has a safe, dark place to do so, but he isn't ready to go back to Hogwarts yet. He'll likely regret the decision in the morning, but October makes him tetchy and out of sorts under normal circumstances. He lets his feet carry him along Charing Cross Road, but ignores the pub and entrance to the alley. Leicester Square station isn't far, And the irony of seeking out the underground after hearing of an underground is amusing. Until this summer, we hadn't been in a tube in years, and there is one last train running before the overnight shutdown. The slow pace of the escalators always irritates him, but walking down them at his normal speed does make for a swift arrival on the lower platforms. He listens to silence settle in around him, not surprised to find himself alone in this area of the station. Mostly alone. Severus feels war-honed instincts prickle with unease, and raises his arm to have his hand resting on his wand sleeve. It's gone from nighttime silence to the too still quiet of a cast charm. The dry sound of of moving machinery at his back has him pausing in mid-motion. If you're looking for a mugging victim, you are definitely pointing that in the wrong direction. Nah, not looking to mug anyone, a male voice says. Would like it if you didn't move, though. Of course. Severus gnashes his teeth and then resolutely stares straight ahead. If he hears any further hint of that weapon's trigger movement, he is operating, and damn the statute, he'd rather live, thank you. Heard you was looking for an underground. How convenient. We're standing in one. Severus replies with grating dryness. Oh, this would be of a different sort. A bit of the anti-Fox type. Severus rolls his eyes. Your accent is atrocious. Please either shoot me or get to the point. Sorry, Moit. I was born high and went to slummets. Sometimes I slip to one side or the other. We were just wanting to know why you were looking for a particular lightning bolt. Because said lightning bolt is missing. That is what one does when children go missing. You search. Severus replies, and hopes there is enough scathing acid in his voice for a wizard holding a gun to choke upon. Fair enough. Who are you looking for that lightning bolt for? Severus frowns. Myself. Really now? Yes, really, he retorts. There are two very different men who would tell you two very different tales, but ultimately, I'm searching to suit my own purposes, not theirs. Hate to break it to you then, but you're looking in the wrong direction. Severus is surprised he is picking up a note of genuine regret in the assailant's voice. He's not with us, mate. But you know where he is, Severus guesses. Maybe. I can tell you this much for free. He's safer than both of us, the other wizard says, followed by the muted crack of disapparition. Severus turns around, scowling at the empty platform. Define safe, he mutters. To his surprise, he gets an answer, even if he can't track the source. Not under anyone's thumb but his own. You're a man what can appreciate that, aren't you? Severus decides that he has had enough of mysterious proclamations and trains. He operates back to Hogwarts after confirming that the platform remains empty. A simple spell disrupts the security monitor in the station long enough for him to depart. The common room is still hosting one lone student. Miss Adele Greenwood has bent over an entire pile of homework and looks to be trying to combine 6 different essays into one. Miss Greenwood, he says, which makes her squeak in surprise. Go downstairs to bed, Miss Greenwood. Aside from the initial shock and his sudden silent appearances often creates, the Slytherins are used to Severus's ways. But this is due tomorrow, she wails. I have to be able to turn it in, Professor. If you plant your face upon this table, you'll be turning in nothing regardless. Go to bed, wake up on time, and stop by my office for a restorative before breakfast. Severus waits for Miss Greenwood to finally agree, shove the entire pile into her book bag, and head for the girls' dormitory stairwell. Has she been here all night? You'd think by now the lot of them would know that I won't help them cheat. No, I will not write your history essay for you, Nazar sounds amused. I might mock them for what they get wrong, though. I often wonder if your students wanted you dead, Severus says, and then relates the useful aspects of the evening. The fuck is a pistol? You are direly undereducated in some truly horrifying aspects, Severus replies, and then considers it. I don't think I've ever selected a book that mentioned anything other than rifles, though. Ah, firearms. Nazar sits down in his chair, resting his booted feet on his own wall. Safe, but under no one's thumb. That is what was said, yes. I'm actually inclined to believe them, Nazar says. Otherwise, they would have simply attempted to murder you and then left your body on the tracks. I do appreciate that you said attempted instead of implying they would be successful. Severus paces along the stones before the fireplace. I am not sure what to do otherwise, though. You've run into a group that doesn't trust Dumbledore, but it's also painfully obvious that they have no love for Voldemort. Severus nods in agreement. The pistol. No follower of the Dark Lord, no matter how secret, would sully their hands with a Muggle device. Then what? I don't know. But you have something you didn't before. When Severus turns to him in surprise, Nazar is looking at him, his head tilted to one side. You have confirmation that you have not failed that child at the moment. What else is there? I would prefer to know of his safety in truth, Severus murmurs. Someone has tried to kill that child since he has started school. Wherever he is, it's probably safer than Hogwarts, Nazar points out dryly.